why did Harry put out his press release at exactly the same time William was the focus of global attention?
We're just doing it the same way that we would want if we were employees of it, right?
I was really ashamed to say it at the time and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry, especially because I know how much loss he's suffered.
So here's what nobody's talking about. While Meghan was doing interviews and writing books, William was playing a completely different game. And I'm not talking about family drama. I'm talking about chess moves that could literally reshape her entire world with one signature. No cameras, no announcements, just quiet strategic planning that's been happening behind palace walls for years. Because here's the thing. Charles believes in mercy and second chances. William? He believes in protecting the institution at all costs. And what he's been building in secret could change everything. The title that made Meghan famous? It might not even be hers in a few years. And once you understand how this actually works, you'll see why she should have been paying attention a long time ago. This isn't about revenge, it's about evolution. And William's already 3 steps ahead. Before I show you exactly how he did it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to break down will completely change how you see this whole situation. Smash the like button too. Let's get into it. Charles's whole thing has always been about reconciliation. Tea and talks, that's his style. Give people second chances, keep the family together, work it out behind closed doors. That's how he was raised. That's what he believes in. And look, there's something noble about that approach, the idea that family should always find a way back to each other. But William, he's been watching this play out for years now, and he's come to a completely different conclusion.
You can't defend them anymore. You know, Harry, I defended him all along, said, look, he's protected his country, he served his country.
He's thinking that Dad's mercy isn't healing anything. It's actually making things worse.
She didn't want to have to walk behind Kate Middleton, you know, the future queen. She felt that they should be treated as equals.
Because while Charles is trying to mend bridges, the institution is taking hit after hit. Interview after interview, headline after headline, and the palace just keeps absorbing the damage. There was apparently this moment, this private conversation between father and son, where everything clicked. William basically looked at his dad and said, "Your mercy is killing us." Not killing the family, killing the monarchy itself. And that's when you realize these two men are looking at the exact same situation and seeing completely different things. Charles sees broken family bonds that need repair. He sees his son Harry, his daughter-in-law, his grandchildren. He sees relationships that matter to him personally. It's emotional, it's human, it's understandable.
Prince William has in the past fortnight seized control of the British monarchy from a weak and dying King Charles.
William sees a structural problem. He sees an institution that's survived 1,000 years because it knew when to adapt, when to tighten up, when to draw clear lines. Where his father sees people he loves making mistakes, William sees a vulnerability that needs fixing before it gets worse. And here's what's wild. William's not sitting around waiting to inherit the throne before he does something about it. He's already moving pieces on the board right now. He's been assembling this team that most people don't even know exists. Historians who understand royal tradition, strategists who know how the monarchy actually works at a deep level. What they're working on isn't some angry response or petty revenge scheme. They're drafting a complete framework for the future. Clear, specific rules about who counts as royal and who's just related to royalty. Because right now, it's fuzzy. It's tradition and assumption and, well, we've always done it this way.
You know, Prince William, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, can be very angry, and rightly so, many say, behind the scenes.
William wants it locked down, impossible to misinterpret. The endgame he's planning is pretty straightforward. Give the next monarch the power to decide who's officially in and who's officially out. Not based on feelings or family pressure, but based on who's actually working for the institution. You serve the crown, you keep the title, the status, the whole package. You step back, do your own thing, chase independence. Cool, but the institution doesn't come with you. His whole philosophy boils down to this one idea.
He writes, Harry reignites war with William, blindsiding his brother with announcement of a Toronto trip.
If the crown means everything, it can't mean anything to everyone. Exclusivity is what gives it power. The moment everyone's a little bit royal, nobody's really royal. It's not about being mean or vindictive. It's about understanding what makes the monarchy work in the first place.
But what William has done in this discussion with Eugene Levy, the star of Schitt's Creek, is address a lot that he has been unable to say.
William's not trying to punish anyone or settle scores. He's updating the system the same way you'd update a historic building.
I hope we don't go back to some of the practices in the past that, Harry and I had to grow up in. I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda.
Keeping what matters, fixing what doesn't work anymore, making sure it lasts. And from his perspective, that means drawing lines that his father's never been willing to draw. So, what exactly is William's team cooking up behind those closed doors? Because it's not just theory or wishful thinking, they've got an actual blueprint. The core idea is pretty simple, but the implications are massive. They want to establish crystal clear rules about who gets to be called royal and who doesn't. Right now, it's this messy thing based on tradition and bloodline and a bunch of outdated protocols from centuries ago.
Who writes, Prince William will strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH titles when he becomes king.
William wants to flip that. He wants it tied directly to one thing: service. You work for the monarchy, you're royal, you get the titles, the status, the HRH, the whole deal. You step away to do Netflix deals and podcasts? That's fine, that's your choice. But the royal part doesn't follow you out the door. It stays with the institution. His advisors have been researching how other monarchies handle this, looking at different approaches, figuring out exactly how to write this so it's solid. Because here's the thing. You can't just wing this stuff. One loophole, one unclear phrase, and the whole thing falls apart. The endgame William's pushing for is actually kind of brilliant in its simplicity. He wants the reigning monarch to have the authority to decide who counts as a working royal. Not outside influence, not public opinion, not family drama. Just the king or queen making a call based on who's actively serving the institution. And get this, they've already mapped out what this would look like in practice.
I've said forever that all it takes is a letters patent to remove royal titles if the king really wishes to do so.
Immediate family who work full-time for the crown, they're in, everyone else, your family, you're loved, you're invited to Christmas, but you're not representing the monarchy in any official capacity. William's been saying this privately for a while now, but his whole philosophy comes down to one sentence. If the crown means everything, it can't mean anything to everyone. It's about exclusivity. The moment you dilute what it means to be royal, you lose the thing that makes it special in the first place. This isn't some emotional reaction or family grudge. This is institutional thinking. William's looking at the next 50, 100, 200 years and asking, what does this thing need to survive? And his answer is boundaries. Clear, enforced, non-negotiable boundaries. The team he's assembled isn't just British either. They've been quietly consulting with experts from Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, places where monarchies have successfully modernized without losing their relevance. They're basically building a playbook based on what actually works in the 21st century. And here's what makes this different from anything Charles would ever do. William's not interested in compromise on this. His dad would negotiate, find middle ground, make everyone feel included. William's approach is more like, here are the rules. They apply to everyone equally, and if you don't like them, that's okay, but they're not changing. Because in his mind, the monarchy isn't a family business you can opt in and out of based on what's convenient. It's an institution with a specific purpose, and everyone involved needs to be all in or all out. There's no halfway. Now here's where it gets really interesting. All that planning William's been doing.
They're now pulling in completely different directions.
It's not just abstract strategy. There's an actual mechanism to make it happen. And it's got this boring sounding name that makes most people's eyes glaze over. Letters patent. Sounds like paperwork, right? But this is legitimately one of the most powerful tools the British monarchy has. It's basically how the crown officially changes the rules about titles, succession, who's royal and who isn't. One document, one signature, and the entire structure shifts. Let me give you some context. Back in 1917, King George V looked around and realized there were just way too many people running around with royal titles. Cousins, second cousins, distant relatives, it was getting ridiculous. So he issued letters patent that basically said, okay, from now on, we're trimming this list way down. And it worked. Just like that, a bunch of people who'd been considered royal suddenly weren't anymore. No drama, no debate, just a rewrite of the rules. That's the thing about monarchy. It doesn't need approval from anyone. The sovereign decides, the document gets signed, it's done. Here's what most people don't realize, though, that 1917 decision wasn't set in stone forever. Any monarch can issue new letters patent. It's happened multiple times throughout history, usually when the institution needs to adapt to changing circumstances. And guess what William's team has been working on? They've already drafted a new version, like it exists right now, sitting in a vault at Kensington Palace, ready to go whenever the time comes. The update they've written is pretty straightforward. It basically says that only working royals, people who are actively serving the institution full-time, get to keep their titles and status. Everyone else, family members, sure, but not royal in the official sense.
Meghan Markle, to me, has lost all sense of reality about life.
Now think about what that means for a second. This isn't something that requires years of negotiation or public votes or drawn-out processes. It's one signature. The king signs it, it becomes official, and suddenly the entire landscape changes. No debates, no back and forth in the media, no chance for anyone to argue their case. It's simply how the system works and has always worked. The crown gives titles, the crown can take them back. That's the fundamental power dynamic that people forget about. And here's the part that really matters. When that document gets signed, whenever that happens, Meghan's whole identity gets a reset. Because everything she's built, everything she's marketed herself as, runs through that one word, Duchess. Take away the official recognition of that title and the foundation shifts under her feet. She'd still technically be married to a prince, sure. But prince without institutional backing, that's just a courtesy title, a family thing. It doesn't carry the weight, doesn't open the same doors, doesn't have the same currency in the rooms where she's been operating. Let's be real for a second. Meghan's entire empire, everything she's built since leaving the palace, runs on one word, Duchess. That's not an exaggeration. Look at how she's marketed herself. The speaking engagements, the production deals, the partnerships with major brands. It all comes back to that royal connection. She's not just another celebrity. She's royalty who stepped away.
Oh, Ms. Markle, you ain't fooling anyone. We just know that you're listening. Yes, that's right.
That's the angle. That's what makes her different. That's what opens doors. Her podcast? Archetypes with Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Her production company's projects, always tied back to her royal status. Every interview, every appearance, every brand collaboration. There's always that title right there in the introduction. It's the foundation everything else is built on. Now imagine that foundation just disappears. Not through some dramatic public fight or scandal, just paperwork. A signature on a document that changes the official recognition of who gets to use royal titles. Take that away, and what happens to the speaking fees? What happens when she's being introduced at events and it's just Meghan Markle instead of the Duchess of Sussex. The rooms might still be interested, but are they as interested? Do the same doors open as easily? Someone close to the situation said something that really stuck with me. They said, without that word, what's the anchor? And that's the question, isn't it? Because celebrity status fades, people move on, new personalities come up, attention shifts. But monarchy, that's permanent, that's institutional, that's 1,000 years of history backing up your credibility. She could still do speaking tours, still do media projects, still be famous. But there's a massive difference between being a celebrity and being royalty. One is about popularity, the other is about legitimacy. One depends on staying relevant, the other just is. The brutal part is how quiet this could be. There wouldn't need to be some dramatic announcement or public showdown. Just an official update to who holds which titles, released through normal channels, and suddenly the landscape is different. And here's the thing about the entertainment and media industries.
This woman is a fraud, and people get it. She's not special. She's not a feminist icon.
They're ruthless about calculating value. They're not paying for personality alone. They're paying for what that personality brings to the table. The unique angle, the exclusive access, the thing nobody else has. What Meghan's been selling is insider royal perspective, combined with current royal status. She's the person who was in the palace and still technically carries that connection. That's rare. That's valuable. Remove half of that equation and the calculation changes. Word is that some of the major players she's working with, streaming platforms, production companies, brand partnerships, they've already started having conversations about what her value actually is. Not in a mean way, just in a business way. What are we paying for? What's the return here? The shift would be from royal mystique to Hollywood personality. And let me tell you, Hollywood has plenty of personalities. It's oversaturated with people who are famous, charismatic, well-connected. The royal part was what made her rare. The irony here is pretty thick. She wanted freedom from the institution. She wanted to step away from the restrictions, the protocols, the constant scrutiny. And that's completely understandable. But the freedom came with a cost she might not have fully calculated.
The extraordinary release of a bombshell book on the royal family.
The institution was the product. The palace doesn't even need to fight. They just need to let the market do what markets do. Reassess, recalibrate, adjust based on what the actual value is without the institutional backing. So, where did William get this idea? Because it's not like he just woke up one day and decided to completely restructure how royal titles work. He's been studying what other monarchies are doing, and one case in particular caught his attention. Denmark, Queen Margrethe II. A few years back, she made this move that sent shockwaves through European royal circles. She stripped 4 of her grandchildren of their royal titles. Just like that. And these weren't distant relatives or people who'd caused scandals. These were her own grandchildren. Her reasoning was pretty straightforward. She said the monarchy needed clarity, not confusion. Too many people with royal titles made it unclear who actually represented the crown in an official capacity. The public couldn't tell who was working for Denmark and who was just family, so she simplified it. And here's what's fascinating. William watched that whole thing unfold. He followed the Danish headlines closely, paid attention to how the public reacted, studied how Queen Margrethe handled the aftermath, because this wasn't theoretical anymore. This was a real-world example of a modern monarchy making a hard call. The Danish move wasn't universally popular at first. Some people thought it was harsh, cutting off family members like that. But you know what happened? The monarchy came out stronger, clearer, more focused. People understood who the working royals were and what they represented. The institution tightened up. William took notes, not just on what Queen Margrethe did, but on how she did it. Quiet, decisive, no apologies.
Prince Harry flaunts his family wealth in a latest cringeworthy bid to overshadow.
She didn't try to please everyone or soften the blow with lengthy explanations. She made the decision, announced it, and moved forward. The monarchy adapted, the family adjusted, life went on. His big takeaway from all this? Monarchies survive by changing before they have to. Not waiting until there's a crisis. Not reacting to pressure, but proactively evolving to stay relevant. Denmark saw a potential problem. Too many royals diluting the brand, and fixed it before it became a real issue. Behind closed doors, William's been reaching out to experts across Europe, people who understand how monarchies work in the modern world, how they've navigated similar transitions, what works and what doesn't. He's not just looking at Denmark, he's studying Sweden, the Netherlands, Spain, anywhere that's successfully modernized. The question he keeps asking is always the same. How do we stay relevant without losing what makes us special? Because that's the balance, right? You can't just hold on to tradition for tradition's sake, but you also can't throw out everything that gives the institution its meaning. And what he's found over and over is that the successful monarchies are the ones with clear boundaries, the ones where everyone knows who's in and who's out, who represents the crown and who's just family.
She did that phony curtsy, and then with a squeaky voice said, "I'm so pleased to see you, Your Majesty."
No gray areas, no confusion, no room for people to use royal status while picking and choosing which responsibilities they want to take on. Denmark did it. They made it work. The monarchy didn't crumble, the family didn't fall apart, and Queen Margrethe's standing actually improved because people respected the decisiveness. So while William's over in London quietly building this whole framework, what's happening on the other side of the Atlantic? Well, Meghan's team starts picking up on things. They're hearing whispers. Terms like title reform and restructuring and protocols changing start floating around in their circles. And at first, maybe it seems like just palace gossip, the usual rumors that swirl around royal family dynamics. But then the whispers get more specific, more consistent, more concerning. Phones start blowing up, emergency meetings get called, people are flying in for conversations that suddenly can't wait. And everyone's asking the same question: what now? What's the plan if this actually happens? Because here's the thing, Meghan's team isn't stupid. They can read the room. They know how much of her current positioning depends on that royal connection. So they start gaming out scenarios, looking for angles, trying to figure out how to protect what they've built. And this is where it gets interesting. Someone on her team floats an idea that's honestly pretty bold. What if they just trademark Duchess of Sussex? Like, make it a business name, a brand identity that exists independently of royal approval.
Oh, Ms. Markle, you ain't fooling anyone. We just know that you're listening. Yes, that's right.
Own it so it can't just be taken away. On the surface, it's clever. If the title becomes a registered trademark, then it's not just about royal protocol anymore. It's a brand. And brands can be protected, defended, monetized, regardless of what some old institution says. But here's the problem with that plan. The palace saw it coming from a mile away. Before Meghan's team could even get the paperwork filed, palace advisors had already quietly shut down the commercial use of royal titles. Not through some big public announcement or dramatic showdown, just through the existing systems that have always been in place to protect royal branding. Channels that have been there for decades, waiting to be used if anyone ever tried something like this. One person close to the situation described it perfectly. They said they brought checkers to a chess match. Because while Meghan's team was thinking about brand protection, William's people had already mapped out every possible move and closed off every exit. The message was crystal clear. The crown gives titles, and the crown controls how those titles get used. You don't get to take royal status and turn it into something else. That's not how this works. That's never been how this works. And that's when reality started setting in for Meghan's team. This wasn't just talk. This wasn't Charles being diplomatic and hoping things would blow over. This was a completely different approach from a completely different generation. William wasn't interested in negotiating or finding middle ground. He was redrawing the boundaries, and those boundaries didn't include workarounds. The scramble intensified. More meetings, more consultations, more late-night strategy sessions trying to figure out Plan B, Plan C, Plan D.
This woman is a fraud, and people get it. She's not special. She's not a feminist icon.
But every path they explored seemed to hit the same wall. The institution had already thought of it and shut it down. So how did the palace get so far ahead? How did they manage to close off every possible workaround before Meghan's team even thought of them? It comes down to preparation. Serious, methodical, years in the making preparation. William's team didn't just wake up one day and start brainstorming. They brought in people who've spent their entire careers understanding how the monarchy works. Historians who know every precedent going back centuries. Strategists who understand protocol at a level most people can't even comprehend. These aren't just advisors. These are specialists who live and breathe this stuff. And what they did was map everything out. Every scenario, every possible response, every loophole someone might try to exploit.
This is now a transatlantic bullying scandal.
They went through it all one by one and figured out how to address it before it became an issue. The brilliant part? They used the existing system to do it. They didn't need to create new rules or invent new restrictions. Everything they needed was already there, built into centuries of royal protocol and tradition. They just had to activate it and think about it. Like the monarchy has been dealing with challenges to its authority for 1,000 years. People have tried everything, claiming titles they shouldn't have, using royal connections in ways they shouldn't, pushing boundaries in ways that threatened the institution. And every single time, the system adapted and created safeguards. All those safeguards were still there, just sitting dormant, waiting for someone to actually use them. William's team went through the archives, studied the precedents, identified which existing protocols applied to modern situations. It was like finding a rule that's been on the books forever, but nobody remembered to actually enforce. The support for all this came quietly. No big announcements, no press conferences, no drama. Everything was framed as modernization and streamlining and clarifying protocols for the 21st century.
The whole cast of Suits, or not the whole cast of Suits, but a large number of the people in Suits, sort of didn't jive with her.
Who's going to argue with making things clearer? Who's going to push back against modernization? That framing was genius. It positioned everything as forward-thinking evolution rather than punitive action. Not we're punishing people who left, but we're updating outdated systems to reflect current realities. Same outcome, completely different optics. And because everything was rooted in existing tradition and established practice, there was no real angle to fight it. You can't argue against the monarchy using its own systems. You can't claim it's unfair when these same protocols have existed for generations. This is literally how the institution has always operated. The people who understand how power actually works, the advisors, the historians, the protocol experts, they all knew this was coming eventually. Not necessarily targeted at anyone specifically, but the slimmed-down monarchy concept had been discussed for years. William just accelerated the timeline and made it concrete. Every workaround already handled. Try to trademark the title. There are existing protections against using royal status that way. Try to claim the title independently. Nope. Titles are granted by the crown and can be modified by the crown. Try to argue it's unfair or unprecedented. Here are 15 historical examples of the exact same thing. This is what institutions do when they feel threatened. They don't panic, they don't react emotionally, they don't engage in public battles. They activate systems that have been built over centuries, specifically for moments like this. So here we are, after all the interviews, all the headlines, all the back and forth drama that's played out over the last few years. This is where things have landed. Buckingham Palace has this vibe now that's just different, calm, controlled, like they finally figured out where they're going after years of just reacting to whatever came at them next. There's a confidence there that wasn't there before. And people are noticing, even the critics, the ones who've been saying for years that the monarchy is outdated and out of touch, they're looking at this and going, okay, that's actually kind of smart. Because whatever you think about the institution itself, you have to admit, this was strategic thinking at its finest. William went from being the guy who just stood there looking dutiful, waiting his turn, to the guy who's clearly already leading. He's not waiting to be king to reshape things. He's doing it now, quietly, methodically, without making a big show of it.
You know, the worst thing you can say to Prince William is when he says, why do we do it like this?
And that shift in perception, that's huge. His whole approach throughout this has been dignity over drama. No public fights, no responding to every accusation, no getting dragged into the mud. Just patient, strategic moves that let the system do the work. The monarchy didn't just survive this whole situation. It got a complete refresh. It looks sharper now, more intentional, more like it actually knows what it's doing. For the first time in forever, the institution seems confident instead of defensive. Meanwhile, Meghan's story continues. She's still doing her projects, still building her brand, still moving forward, but it's on different terms now. The royal connection that defined everything for so long, that opened every door and gave her that unique positioning, that's shifting. The question that hangs in the air, the one nobody really wants to say out loud, but everyone's kind of thinking, without the institution backing her up, who is she in those rooms? What's the pitch when the royal mystique isn't part of the package anymore? And here's the thing that makes this whole story so fascinating. The crown didn't need to destroy anyone, didn't need dramatic confrontations or public battles or vindictive moves. It just evolved. It adapted. It used the same systems that have kept it relevant for 1,000 years and applied them to a modern problem. William and his team played the long game. While everyone else was focused on interviews and headlines and who said what, they were building something structural, something that would outlast any individual controversy. The palace showed something really important here. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to be the most powerful. You don't have to win every news cycle or control every narrative. Sometimes you just need to understand the system better than anyone else and use it the way it was designed to be used. The crown didn't need to destroy anyone, it just needed to wait. So that's what's actually been happening behind the palace walls. William didn't need the drama, he just needed the strategy. If this gave you a different perspective, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives beyond the surface level stuff. And drop a comment. Do you think his approach was brilliant or cold? Honestly, I think it might be both. Catch you in the next one.